Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcasts. Freddie is not here today, and I have been promoted from host of the fantasy and the betting show to host of the regular Tuesday show. We're here to talk about the conference championships. We now know it's the Eagles versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl on the 12th of February. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to break down the conference championships games and talk about them. I'm joined by Adam, my usual companion for those two shows. And we've got Johnny and Sky back as they were here for the divisional games. They're going to see if their predictions were right, and we'll talk about them. There is one topic before we get into it that I want to get out of the way because I know it's going to come up at some point. So I just want to get the feel about the refs before we talk about the game. Adam, you've had a lot to say about it, so I'm going to come to you first. How do you feel?
What have I had to say about it?
How do you
I haven't
feel
had that much
about the refs for this weekend? Was it the worst piece of refereeing you've ever seen? Do you think it was rigged? What are you saying?
No, of course it wasn't rigged. I mean, what are these people on who think it was rigged, honestly? I think with all of these games, and you get it in big games over here with our sports as well, that home crowds get favourable calls. I think it happens all the time. But I felt like the Chiefs one was just slightly too much. That was the difference between the two games. I felt the Eagles got a few favourable calls, nothing ridiculous, but a few favourable things. I know a lot of people are going to go about the Devonta Smith catch, but when you look at where the refs were, they're not going to not give that. And they didn't challenge it. So that's kind of how it worked. When it comes to the Chiefs one, there was some real dodgy stuff going on there, and it just felt like I felt as the crowd got on their back. The crowd was so loud, got on their back, and it's got to be human, isn't it? You have to be human in them sort of situations. They're not robots. They're going to make mistakes and think, Jesus, I don't want this crowd on my back because like they're going to kill me getting out of here, sort of thing. So you feel like there's a bit of that in it. I just felt it was a little too obvious. That was the problem.
Now, Sky, you're a Patriots fan, and obviously you've had the years of everybody saying that the refs are all on your side. So looks like they're no longer on your side, and they've moved to some other teams. How do you feel the refs did on this one? Do you think that, especially the redo of the third down, which they've come out and said was definitely the referee's fault? How do you feel about that? And do you feel that had a big impact on the game?
I think it had a big impact in terms of just people questioning the integrity of the outcome in a sense. And I think the issue for me was they're professional refs. So surely that I'm sure, as Roger Goodell and they always do, every time there's a thing like this, there'll be a review. And in the off season, something will change, right? That's just how they deal with it. I think the issue for me was if you're a professional ref and you've been doing it for years, it would have been quite simple to just let the play go, and you can make an amendment on the clock afterwards. You know, what was it, give or take 10 seconds? And I think as much as they were very lucky the Chiefs didn't score on that drive, because can you imagine if they'd went and put points up on that? Yeah, they got away with one there. But I think Zach Taylor by that point was already wound up. And then another one was happening. And then you could just see he probably thought, what, I need to catch a break this season. I don't know. It probably wasn't the first time either. But yeah, I think they need to take big blame for that, because surely the guys in New York who communicated at the time weren't telling them. I don't know if they advised them on replaying that. But even if they did, I think it will change anyway in the off season.
I think when you get errors that happen in a game where there isn't any rules put in place for it because it hasn't happened before, it's very hard then to decide what to do. So to come up and say, yeah, just have a redo of the down probably isn't best for the teams, which is what they're not looking at. They're looking at it from a refs analyst perspective rather than what's best for the teams at the time. So that's a real good point. I suppose you're not going to get these issues until they crop up. But you do hit on a really, really good point there about the fact that these decisions, and when they don't go your way, it's going to impact the head coaches that's way it's not going. Johnny, do you feel there's a massive sort of implication? Do you think it plays on your mind as a head coach when the decisions aren't going your way? And do you think that's why there was the downfall of the decisions from the Bengals and the 49ers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you can't take anything away from the Chiefs first off for the victory. I think, that they on the evening were probably edged the game, but such a critical moment. We've talked so much about this, the third down, failed sort of play, and that, could have, sort of contributed to the outcome of the game, given that both teams were level at 20 all. I mean, if I was Zach Taylor or any sort of Bengals fan, I'd be absolutely fuming that that's cost us your team a place in the Super Bowl. To go on and get a place in the Super Bowl. I think they have every right to be. To react how they have, on socials. I mean, obviously, without going to the absolute extremes, but there has to be some sort of accountability, and obviously, looking forward to sort of reviewing this sort of situation. It doesn't happen again for these sort of teams. I think far too much in sports. We do see some of the biggest games decided by mistakes, and obviously we're all sort of human, but yeah, I think everyone has if you're on the losing side of this sort of situation, I think you have every right to question the processes and how these calls are made.
Now we've got that out the way. We've talked about the refs. Now, go on, Adam. What you
can I just quickly say? I felt Burrow wasn't protected enough by the refs at all. There was a good 2 or 3 rough in the passer calls that should have been called and weren't called. They were the ones that I had more of a problem with. I think with the sort of the clock and things like that, you could see there was, when they showed the replay, there was a ref actually trying to come on, and they were saying that they couldn't hear him and stuff like that. So there were things that you can kind of be like, okay, well, that's fair enough. But the rough in the passer plays that weren't given, they're the ones that to me were the worst.
Yeah, especially when they've made big points of that throughout the season, everything's been called. It just seems that we've got all this way to this level and these big games like this, and they're not being called. It just seems really odd. Johnny, what are you going for, mate?
I think it's just all about consistency, and I think this season in the NFL, we've seen refereeing calls that just haven't been consistent, or certain teams seem to have been more favored on certain decisions. So I think that's all people, fans, coaches are asking for is a level of consistency. And there are far too many rules in, I think, a lot of sports I watch, whether that be rugby, football, the NFL. It's just about making sure that everyone knows the letter of the law, and having that sort of consistency in making decisions. That's all anyone wants. It's such a huge talking point, and obviously this is a fundamental issue in sports, which will never go away. But yeah, it's obviously, if I was a Bengals fan, being on the wrong side of it this time must hurt a great deal. Seeing the Chiefs obviously make it back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, as you said, the conversation of refs always does come up in these big games like this. I just personally thought it was some of the worst refereeing I've seen throughout the year. And I just wanted to get it out the way, because let's take nothing away from the fact that the Eagles won and the Chiefs won, and that there was nothing to do with them, the refs. They played their game and they got it on their side. So let's talk about these games. Let's break them down, and we'll talk about the first game that we had, which was the 49ers versus the Eagles, 31-7 to the Eagles. The game was pretty much over in the first quarter after the injury. But I won't talk about it too much, because I didn't discuss it last week. Let's go straight into someone who did. Sky, what break me down the 49ers Eagles game? What were your thoughts on it?
I'm not going back to the refs again, but the thing I was going to say with Shanahan, I saw him come out and say about not challenging in the timeout. I think that was a big mistake. I mean, a team goes for it on 4th down. You can see receivers lining up and then going to snap the ball. I know that's a routine thing to get off, but I just think missed opportunity there. Speaking about saving a timeout, but it's a championship game. And like you said, I mean, as soon as Purdy was out, the Eagles just got going. I mean, in terms of the yardage, I think Philly only had 38 more passing yards. Of course, they had 67 more rushing and got it done on the ground. but the game was done. They dominated time of possession. And I think the key battle really was that O-line just silencing the D-line of San Francisco. They've probably been one of the best D-lines in the last 5 years. And the Eagles' offensive line just made them look ordinary. And yeah, they played really well. It'll be interesting for them against the Chiefs because they've had two, I don't want to say easy wins, but convincing wins, So if it comes up with a little bit of adversity, maybe Kansas City are more prepared for that. But I think Philly dominated and they can feel confident going into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you touch on one of the key things that's been spoke about a lot. The two games got finished and they were done. And the big thing, obviously, the refs with the Bengals game. But the thing with the Eagles one is everyone's now, they've got to the Super Bowl, but still everyone's saying they had the easiest schedule. They played the Giants, then they played a very banged up and injured 49ers. But Johnny, when's this team going to catch a break, and when are people going to start taking them seriously? And are they a serious contender, or is it all those factors that people are now on social media splashing out there? Do you think the Eagles are the real deal?
Absolutely. I mean, I was well on board the 49ers train, as you would have heard last week. And obviously, the different sort of talking points from the game. We've brought Purdy going out injured, but the 49ers were never in this game, and the way that the Eagles were able to manage the second half, Jalen Hurts never got out of second gear, and they didn't need to. It wasn't this is the Eagles team that we've come to see, I think, this year, that where they they play games where they don't need to be at the highest level. They have so many superstars around, so many players that can make a play or just step up when it's needed. They're a complete team, and they shut down, for me, the most complete team in the NFL in the Niners. Outside of obviously the quarterback, but I mean, it's going to obviously they're going to have to step it up, I think, against the Chiefs, but they've got to deserve so much credit for getting to a Super Bowl, regardless of who they've played. It's obviously not an easy feat, and I think they'll be super confident going into 2 weeks' time. They've got so many players I've mentioned just around the field. I think the only question mark is controlling the phenomenon in Patrick Mahomes. That's the only thing I think where the Eagles probably have a weakness against the Chiefs. So I mean, this team can go on and achieve great things, and they look like the favourites. Many people are saying they're the favourites to go and win the whole thing.
Now, Adam, on the betting show, I went for the 49ers. You went for the Eagles. It was the only one that we disagreed on. It went your way. Now, do you feel like Johnny's just touched on it slightly there? Do you feel like the Eagles were impressive in this game? Do you see points in that and what it was? Or do you think it was just the fact that Purdy got injured and they never managed to recover from that?
I don't really feel like the Eagles were particularly impressive in this game because they didn't need to be. They just were kind of pretty steady. And I must admit, I was watching it and I just sort of about halfway through, got in the third quarter, and I'm just sort of thinking to myself, Jalen Hurts hasn't done anything, really. He hasn't really had to do anything. It's been pretty steady. And it's like, I just had a look, found his, what he did. It's 15 out of 25, 121 yards passing. I mean, it's not a lot. He got a rushing touchdown, but even then he only got 39 yards. It's not anything spectacular, but, they just beat the team. The one thing I would say about the Eagles, and, I said this ages ago, and, I got laughed at, didn't I, by you? Yeah, you. I'll bring it up again. Don't you worry. I don't mind. Beginning of the season, what did I say?
You said Eagles to the Super Bowl.
I did say Eagles to the Super Bowl, didn't I? And I think I don't see where the weakness is. That's the thing. When you look at the whole team, I don't see where it is. I think the D-line is very strong. They can get to any O-line that they're up against. I think the O-line is, the one thing I'd say, the 49ers, very, very good against the run. Got taken apart by Kenneth Gainwell. Jesus, that's where we've got to. And it's all because of the O-line and moving the players in the right places. And it's like, this is the thing. I think the complete team. But in this particular performance, this game was done as soon as Purdy went, because clearly Johnson is not great, which is, not his fault. He's the fourth choice quarterback, isn't he? So it's like, it's what you expect. But he's clearly not brilliant. But you can't just have Purdy just handing the ball off all the time. I know he couldn't do anything else, but you can't have that and expect to get anywhere. That's the thing. So in this particular game, I just kind of felt a little bit like it was over before it began, to be honest.
Yeah, bringing in Ndamukong Suh onto that D-line was definitely a great choice for them, because early in the season, we both noticed that they were struggling in the middle and stopping the run. And then Jordan Davis obviously got back fit, and Ndamukong Suh, and they've just been an unstoppable force on that defense. Now, you say that Hurts didn't do a lot and didn't have to do a lot. Yet before the game, Hurts said that he didn't even feel like he was 70% fit. And it definitely at times looked like he wasn't himself and wasn't fit. There's a lot of people just talking about Mahomes playing on one leg and getting through his game. No one seems to be talking about the fact that Hurts was also extremely dinged up in this game and hurt. Do you think that the time gap now between now and the Super Bowl is enough for him to get healthy? Or do you think he's going to be carrying some of those injuries through to the Super Bowl again?
I think he probably will. I get the feeling that he's going to be just... who's not hurt? I mean, that's the problem, isn't it, once you reach this point? I think he probably will be carrying some form of an injury there. I don't think it really matters. He does so much with his legs. I think that's the difference where, if it was a leg injury, then it would be a big problem. But because it's his shoulder, isn't it? Is the problem. Because it's his shoulder, I just feel like it's not going to stop him that much. And they can lean on the run game, and he can still make passes like he did to Devonta Smith and stuff like that. So it's obviously not too badly affecting him, but it's affecting him a little bit. I think he'll be fine.
Now, we've talked about the offense. We talked about how good they are. We've also talked about the defense as a collective for the Eagles. Yet there's one name that really, really stood out in that game, and that was Hassan Reddick, who had the injured both the quarterbacks, got the two forced fumbles, got the fumble recovery. Sky, do you think that he was a snub for Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah, definitely. But I think the thing that went against him was you had 4 players on that team with double-digit sacks. And when that happens, that's obviously going to be given more to the scheme itself than any individual.
We've lost him. We've lost Sky. We'll move on to a different question. We'll pick up. Oh, we've got him back. I
got booted. I was talking too well about the Eagles, and obviously all the Patriots fans out there were telling me, "Don't talk about them. We're still bitter about the Philly special." But no, I'm just going to following on from that. I mean, I mentioned, I believe it was last week, about how they are only the 4th team in NFL history to reach 70 sacks in the regular season. And I had a look today, and the other 3 teams were all from the 80s, which I found quite interesting considering that it's so offense heavy now in the NFL. The rules are tailored that way. So for a defense, yes, it's a 17-game regular season now, but they've been impressive as a collective. And I think, unfortunately, that's gone against him, and that's why he's got snubbed. But that defense is standout across the board, even at secondary. So they deserve all the plaudits, all of them.
Yeah, definitely. They've made some really good moves to get all those pieces in there. Before we move on to the next game, I just want to briefly talk about the 49ers and the future for them and what's next, because they have got an aging roster. They have got a few people with contracts probably coming up. Johnny, what do you think the fix is for them next year? Where do you see them with their quarterback? Because obviously they haven't managed to keep one of the 4 fit. Do they go out and bring someone else in? Do they work with Trey Lance? What do you think the future is for this 49ers?
Yeah, I think the big question mark is obviously, as you mentioned, at quarterback. Brock Purdy's been a real sensation since he's come in as the unexpected sort of starlight of this team. Obviously didn't work out for him on Sunday. And I hope it's not the last we see of him. But I do think the 49ers, to make themselves, up the next level, is to go out and get themselves a veteran quarterback. I don't think. I mean, I was reading today about Trey Lance's future. There's talk of a potential trade for him. So the Titans were linked in the Athletic today. So yeah, I think there's a big question marks on the career with obviously Garoppolo leaving as well to free agency this summer. And yeah, I think they've got to go out and get someone. Tom Brady's obviously been a name that's been heavily linked. That's obviously a very short-term solution. But yeah, I think he's, the caliber of player. I think he can still bring a lot, obviously. And yeah, I think he just will add a better sort of bigger dimension to their offense from what we've mentioned. The players, just passing it off. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey showed, partly on Sunday just why he's such an explosive talent and potential NFL comeback player of the year. But yeah, they need to add someone who can, really throw the deep balls and connect a bit more accurate, that sort of thing. So in the short term, I'll be looking at Tom Brady. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think there's a lot of areas that they need to work on. Nick Bosa's obviously contract year, that's obviously a given. But we know from last season there was difficult sort of issues with players like Debo. And yeah, I think just this offseason it's just about getting the quarterback and settling the same roster in for another championship contending season next year.
Yeah, before the end of the season, I kind of had in my head, they roll the ball with Trey Lance, back up with Brock Purdy. But now knowing that Brock Purdy's injury is for 6 months and he's not going to be able to train in any of the off season, and we don't know what we've got from Trey Lance, I just went through it and thought it's very aging. George Kittle, there's a lot of players that are in their 30s. Christian McCaffrey I know he's only 27, but he's, for a running back that's taken the amount of hits he has, it's quite old. Bit of the O-line's getting there as well. I'm starting to think in my head that this team's maybe only got one more year in it before it needs to start looking at maybe building something new. Adam, do you feel the same about that, or do you think they've got the ability to adapt and just run with the youngsters?
Yeah, I must admit, I didn't realize how old they were. I just had a look. They have got some guys, haven't they, that are quite a lot, especially on the defense as well. I didn't realize there was quite as many of them. Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it, when it comes to the quarterback? That's the problem. It's such a problem for them now. I mean, Trey Lance, they're coming out and saying they reckon he's going to be good for OTAs. As you said about Brock Purdy, you're looking at 6 months. Jimmy Garoppolo, they're not going to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. There's no logic to that whatsoever. But they're ready to win now. So you sort of think, if they're ready to go now, you're going to have to go for a veteran that's going to win now. I mean, who have you got, really? They're like, genuinely, who is there? Because, yeah, I mean, but you look at him this year. I mean, what are you doing? Are you blaming everything on the coaching? And I mean, it wasn't great at the Bucs by any stretch. I mean, I kind of get that it makes sense, but I don't know. I don't know who that veteran is that's going to, because this is the thing. If you're going to do it, they have to win. Like, there is no kind of other option here, and I just don't know who that guy is. I mean, maybe you could go Brady. I don't see them. Well, I can't see the Packers trading Rodgers to them, so that's not going to happen. So yeah, I mean, I don't quite know who this veteran is. I think they are going to. Their sort of their arc is coming to an end, isn't it? In the same way that it has with a lot of these teams that have been at the top for a long time. It's just they've managed to hang on a little bit longer. They've brought in McCaffrey to kind of make it a bit more. Make it last a bit longer. But yeah, I think it's going to be very tough for them. I don't know. I don't know where they go. Maybe they do go Brady and put him on like a 1-year deal and hope that it works. But
well,
I don't know.
Everyone's already said this season you can plug any quarterback in there and they'll do well. I think what they really need is someone that's a veteran that's never been injured, never gets injured all season. What? Tom Brady fits that bill. Someone that they can get on the cheap. I think Tom Brady fits that bill. Sky, he was your boy for a long time. Do you think it will be Tom Brady?
I think if it was any other team, I'd be saying no, but it's his hometown team. You know, the rumours of the 49ers have been there for a while now. You have a great tight end in George Kittle. That's what Brady loves. McCaffrey, you know, is just basically, I mean, James White was great for the Patriots as a receiving back, but McCaffrey's the ultimate receiving back. Debo, I think it does make sense. And I'm sure even Shanahan's got to the point now after a few seasons where he's like, just give me a quarterback who's not going to go down injured, like you said. Just give me someone who can win now. And probably coincidentally, the NFC West seems to have dipped a bit. I know Seattle overperformed this season. The Rams are in rebuild. The Cardinals have got question marks. You know, if the Niners can get a quarterback, they're probably going to walk a division and be in a favourable position. So, yeah, I think Brady's an option there. I think it will either be retirement, Titans with Vrabel, or 49ers. I think those are his three options.
Well, I've got Rodgers going to the Titans on my little board of the quarterback carousel, so you know, maybe that. We'll move on to what was the more competitive game of the two. Probably the more exciting one, the one that had, for me and Adam, had all the excitement building for it, which was the Chiefs versus the Bengals. 23-20 to the Chiefs, went down to the last kick. Adam, how do you feel about this game?
Yeah, it was a bit different to what I think we felt it was going to be. Or maybe we all just hoped it was going to be a bit of a shootout. It didn't quite go the way that we all wished it would, but it was still an exciting game, still had lots of things going on. And yeah, I was a little, obviously at the end of it, a little bit disappointed. I kind of hoped that the Bengals would get through myself. But, you know, I mean, Kansas, they were good. They're a good team, and they did a lot, didn't they? I mean, the run game was pretty dead on both teams, to be honest. Not a lot really happened there, so it kind of became a bit of a passing slog, which is what we thought. It's just that the defenses kind of did a lot better than what I think we all thought, especially the Chiefs defense. That was the one that surprised me a little bit. You know, been saying it all the way through the betting show that we've been doing. You know, 32nd against passing touchdowns. They give up passing touchdowns all the time. And at corner, they're pretty banged up and just not very good anyway. So it was a little bit surprising that they managed to hold them to as little as what the Bengals actually got. I think Higgins got the most, didn't he? Most yards on the Bengals side. Chase was very quiet. I know they double teamed him, but even still, they kind of took him out of the game. So yeah, I was just it wasn't quite what we all thought, and was just, you know, Mahomes being Mahomes, despite the fact that he's got some injury. Don't anyone tell me it's a high ankle sprain, because it's clearly not. But this myth that we've got some magic man who can run on a high ankle sprain all of a sudden. But yeah, I mean, they did well, and they just looked strong. I felt like the defense really stepped up for them, which I was a bit surprised that they did as well as they did.
Now, you just mentioned a few things about Patrick Mahomes there. His one leg, you know, he had 3 of his top receivers out at one point in the game. So to backup receivers, there was no run game whatsoever. Sky, is now the time to start calling him the GOAT. You know, he had 2 touchdowns, you know, yards were there, you know, over 100 quarterback passer rating. Should we just start calling him the GOAT?
Hit me.
I love that you went to the Patriots fan on that. That is brilliant.
I was going to go to Johnny. I thought, I can't miss the opportunity. Sorry, Johnny, I've left you out for a little bit.
That's her. The worst thing is I've been comparing Mahomes and this offense to the Patriots, the way it's adapted. I remember saying last week, you know, since Tyreek Hill has left, I've been super impressed. He threw to 10 different receivers last week. And yeah, I mean, I hurt my high ankle sprain playing basketball once, so Mahomes obviously recovers better than I do. Not that I'm comparing myself to Patrick Mahomes, but yeah, he scrambled really well on that last play. But you know, for their team to be in 5 straight AFC title games, another Super Bowl, he's going to be in that conversation. I mean, there was a stat about he's only, I think, less than 10 touchdowns behind Brady already in like AFC title game touchdowns. And even that made me scratch my head. I was like, uh-oh, in a couple of years, maybe I might have to rethink this. But I've just been very impressed that they've plugged in a lot of receivers in terms of free agency. Like you said, they had 3 people down. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers at home was thinking, hang on, Valdez Scantling's got 116 yards and a touchdown here. Where was that for me in Lambeau? So Mahomes is making it work. He's doing great. And I think his injury, you know, no matter the severity, the offense was a little bit more simplified. And if they can just use that game plan against the Eagles, you know, and just get the ball out quickly, I think they can have real success against the Eagles defense, because Brady did that against the Rams pass rush. Everyone spoke about Aaron Donald that whole Super Bowl, and he was just sort of didn't have any impact because the ball just got out of Brady's hands within 2 seconds. I think if Andy Reid and Mahomes have a similar game plan, they can give the Eagles defense, you know, plenty of headache and ensure that they don't have an impact.
Now, Johnny, you seem really impressed with the Bengals last week against the Bills. I know you're talking about it on the show with Fred. What went wrong for them in this game? Because they didn't look the same team as they did in the previous 2 games in the playoffs.
I think, there was a lot obviously around the preamble to the game with, you know, players calling out, Chiefs players, you know, obviously Burrow's sort of questions, the mayor of Cincinnati get involved. And I feel that sort of overconfidence always comes back to hurt you. And yeah, the Bengals, I'm obviously not saying that, you know, Burrow's impacted by any sort of overconfidence. Is a brilliant player and is, you know, looks very level-headed. But, you know, to go to Arrowhead Stadium and get a result is just not an easy thing to do. I know obviously they had their record beforehand, you know, owning the Chiefs. Was it the last 3-4 games? But yeah, it just didn't work. And I think, you know, Chris Jones sort of highlighted, you know, just how dominant the Chiefs can be. He sort of, you know, annihilated the weakened Bengals O-line. And yeah, I think, you know, that sort of set the tone really. They never, from what I saw, never really sort of got going. They're obviously in the game. It wasn't an exciting shootout as we were all expecting. But yeah, I think the pre-game antics certainly didn't help. And, you know, that contributed to such a hostile environment in Arrowhead. We've obviously talked about the refereeing decisions, whether there was any influence from the home team crowd is a different story. But yeah, you can't go and disrespect a team like the Chiefs, especially with someone like Patrick Mahomes. Coming up against you. So that for me, I'm not, you know, I'm looking forward to watching the Bengals again next year. I really do think this team can go and win a Super Bowl in the next few years. But yeah, I think it's just another learning curve. They're obviously a young team. You know, they've got the building blocks for the future. I think we're going to have many more of these AFC title games in the future. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing them. But yeah, just wasn't their year this year.
So we're not calling it Burrowhead anymore. I think that. Adam, you talked about the Chiefs being able to be beaten in the secondary. For me, I noticed that the Bengals went pass, and they didn't use Joe Mixon virtually at all. I think he was only on the field for like 23 of the snaps as well. Do you think they went a bit predictable? Do you think they walked into a bit of a trap, a little bit of maybe the head coach might not have had the experience like we've seen from like Andy Reid? Do you think there's anything in that? And why do you think they didn't use Joe Mixon, who had such a good game the week before?
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because obviously Mixon has been one that has done well. I think, I mean, we spoke about this, didn't we? That the Chiefs sort of, how you can get at the Chiefs is through the passing game. That was what we came out and said all the time, because the stats back that up. But when you actually look at it, they are quite impressive against the run. They don't give up much against the run, and it was a bit of a surprise to all of us that or certainly to me when I was looking at the stats, that the Chiefs were actually as good as they are against the run, because they were giving up points all the time. But when you break it down and look at it, it is very much against the pass that they struggle. And that was quite a surprise to see. I can only assume they went down the same route. That their theory was very much, well, we'd try the run, we'd do, give it a go, see what happens, but Mixon was only out there for 8 carries in the run. It's not enough. It's like he needs to be in there a lot more. For whatever reason, they just went very much pass heavy, and maybe it is the coaching. I don't know. It just kind of felt a little bit like, you played against the Bills, who are another defense who are very good against the run, and you were happy to do it because it was snowing. And it's almost like, but because it's not snowing, you thought, oh, well, we'll just rely on Burrow all the time. And the O-line struggled. That O-line that did very, very well against the Bills, it really did struggle against the Chiefs. It got, Chris Jones did get to him a lot, and the others put pressure on that O-line, and it did kind of buckle a bit, which was, again, a surprise given how well they did against the Bills. So I just think that the theory was you can get at them through the passing game. And so we'll go for that. But yeah, it was didn't work. But yeah, I think that was what their logic was.
Yeah, I was really, really shocked to see that at the end of it, that Samaje Perine was on the field more than Mixon. It just baffles me a little bit. Now, a lot of people said that last season was a fluke for the Bengals. They backed it up by getting back to the game again this year. There's a lot of people saying it's Allen versus Mahomes that's going to be the game that we're all seeing of the future. I personally think that Burrow Mahomes is the next Brady Manning saga. Sky, do you think the Bengals can back it up? And do you think that's a game we're going to be seeing every year now? Do you think they'll bounce back, or do you think they might crumble now they didn't make it back to the Super Bowl?
100% agree with your Brady Manning comparison. I think, it just seems more logical. I really like Josh Allen, but we've seen other quarterbacks in the past who, with his body type and the way he plays, get banged up over more time. And the Bills can't seem to draft a competent running back to sort of take that away from him. It's just in his nature anyway to play like that. So yeah, and in terms of the Bengals, I think they can get back. The issue last year, obviously after the Rams game, was the O-line. If it had a decent O-line, they could have upset the Rams. And then again this season, it was going well, and then Collins got done for the season. They've had more injuries, and again, you can blame the O-line. Of course, there'll be play calling issues there, like we've said about maybe running the ball more. But I just think they got a little bit of a cop-out maybe with the refs. I know we've all said it wasn't great, but they can say last season we didn't expect to get to the Super Bowl. We did. This year, well, we could have made it, but it didn't work out. The expectations obviously now are going to be that, I know people just say, oh, little old Cincinnati, but they've got players now to be a real force in the AFC and win a Super Bowl. But I guess they don't want to get into a 49ers territory where they've been a competitor for a few years, and then it sort of goes downhill because, of course, once Chase, Burrow and the money starts getting paid out, then there's going to be changes amongst that team. But at least in the short term, I think they're equipped to go all the way, and I think they can do that hopefully in the next year or two.
Yeah, they're going to have some very big contracts very soon to pay with Burrow, Chase, Higgins as well. So that's going to be a good obstacle. Adam, what were you going to join?
Aren't they? They're getting sponsorship on the stadium, aren't they, to pay for Burrow?
Oh, breaking news.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Hey, we've got breaking news.
Have we?
We have. Do you not know this?
Go on.
Okay. So the Saints and the Broncos have finalised a deal for a certain head coach.
I wonder who that could be.
So Sean Payton is going to be the Broncos head coach, and New Orleans are going to be getting a first rounder for this year and an early pick, likely a second rounder for 2024. And then they will be giving a pick back, but we don't know what that is.
Now, Freddie, all year round and in the off season, always does shows live, and it's like, I really want some breaking news. I really want some breaking news. But when he's not on, I've got it. Guys, what are your thoughts? We'll come to you, Johnny. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, Peyton's obviously been linked heavily with the Broncos. Broncos look like they've gone all after him here, but yeah, I wasn't expecting him to take this job. I think it's going to be a real challenge for him to resurrect Russell Wilson. It was a calamity in Denver this year, but yeah, I think that's really exciting for obviously Broncos fans. Someone of Peyton's caliber. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where they go from next year. Obviously, giving up high-end picks for a coach is a different question, and having given up already such a great deal for Wilson is quite problematic for the future. So yeah, the Broncos are going all in. So yeah, it's yeah, they've got to improve and got to get to the high end of the contending sort of arena in 2023, or otherwise that's it for this franchise.
Sky,
what position is their first round pick? Because they're not as low as what they should be, should they? Because isn't it the Seahawks have got it, haven't they?
No, I think they so. The Chubb trade with the Dolphins, is that the one that's going to
Denver's picks the 30th
Saints? Yeah, because it went via the 49ers, I think, for the from a couple of years ago, which I think was involved with the Lance trade. So not particularly high, but still picks a pick.
Gets them back into the first round though, doesn't it? Which they didn't have. So Sky, what's your thoughts on this? I personally thought if he came out of retirement, he'd just go back to the Saints. I didn't see him going anywhere else. How do you feel about this?
I thought he was waiting for the Dallas Cowboys job, but McCarthy and Jerry Jones have their annual sleepovers, so he probably missed the invite to that. But no, I think when he was at the Saints, I always thought that they should try and trade for Russell Wilson. Actually, I remember saying to a friend of mine, a Saints fan. So I think that's quite a good combination for Sean Payton to be his head coach, because I know a lot of it was laughable in the end, right? Let's ride and this and that, but they lost so many close games that it could have gone the other way. It was like 9 in total by one score. So if you can get a competent head coach, not a offensive coordinator from the Packers who wasn't even really calling plays there anyway, I think it's a great move. And everybody spoke about they've got weapons already in Denver on that offense. So bringing that mind in is going to help a lot. And what do they have to lose? He obviously, the money helps, but I'm sure he's probably also thinking he can build that team up the way he sees it. So yeah, I think it works for both parties.
Adam, we championed the Broncos roster before the season started, and you said that Wilson needed a full year, and you didn't expect them to do as well as what some of us were thinking. So you expecting them to be a bit of a force next year, because they have got a talented roster?
No, I don't think they'll be a force next year. Yeah, they have a talented roster, but no. The problem is they're in this division where you've got the Chiefs and you've got the Chargers as well. And I know that the Chargers are, we always have a laugh, and they're serial, like, just screw themselves over every year. It's what they do. But they're still a strong enough team to get to the playoff. So I think because of that, it's going to be very tough for them to do it. They might sort of like they'll certainly be better. They can't be any worse, surely. So that's something. But I think it's going to be very difficult. I mean, they've clearly gone all in, which is just odd, because you're not really in a position to go all in, but they've decided to do it anyway. I think he's going to have to work miracles. I really do, and it's going to be tough for him.
It's a night of breaking news. Johnny's got some more for us. We'll cut to Johnny. It's like a proper newscast now, isn't it? We'll cut to Johnny.
Well, Freddie waits, what is it, a few years for some breaking news, and you get 2 in 1. That's what a dream. Yes, so the San Francisco 49ers coordinator DeMarco Ryans has joined the Houston Texans to become their new head coach. So we have 2 coaching vacancies now done and dusted and sorted within the space of 5-10 minutes. So yeah, another interesting one. Obviously, you know, not as prolific, I don't think, as Sean Payton, but I know that Ryan's has been touted for a few jobs this year. And we actually think the Texans' job, you know, as much as the franchise is, you know, has been in complete disarray for the last couple of years. It's obviously a really exciting prospect to, you know, come in and really, you know, change the sort of dynamic of a struggling franchise. They've got a lot of young players, a lot of picks. So, yeah, I think it's definitely one for the future. I think he signed quite a long deal. I think it was 6 years, I just read. So, yeah, look forward to seeing how they get on over the next few years.
Yeah, and they're going to get their pick of the quarterbacks as well from the draft, which means he's going to get the guy that he wants. So there's going to be none of that. The guy there isn't the guy I want another year. So, you know, it's an interesting job to take. It's probably not one that I'd want to take, but we could go. If I carry on like this, there's going to be more and more head coaches' jobs filled, and I'm never going to get round everyone. So we'll leave the Texans head coaching job for tonight. I'm going to do a quick whip round of you guys because I'm sure we'll do a big show prior to the Super Bowl and get real deep into that. So just a quick whip round, guys. Who do you think your initial winner is of it? Adam, I'll come to you first. Who are you going with for the Super Bowl?
Eagles.
Johnny?
I'll go Chiefs. And
Sky, finally with you.
I just need to throw out that I was 2 for 2 last week before I get this one wrong. I don't know. I'm going to say 27-20 either way. I'll give you a score, but not a team yet. Is that all right?
You sat on the fence last week as well, didn't you? On one of the comments. We don't like that.
I got Freddie stitched me up by saying rank all four, and I just gave my predictions. I said, you know, my heart said the Bengals and the Niners. My head said the Eagles versus the Chiefs, and that's what happened. So I'll have a think. You wanted a simple answer. The Eagles are the better team, but the Chiefs have got Kelsey, Andy Reid, and Mahomes. So I don't know how to decide. But, you know, I like Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I'll say Eagles then, early doors, but I might change it.
Great reason. I mean, if I wasn't a Giants fan, I'd probably go down that reasoning as well to support them. But I'm not going down that. It's not going to come out my mouth. You talk about the fact that you got both of them right last week. Adam, you only got one game wrong from the whole of the playoffs.
That's insane.
Of your playoff bracket, and that was the Bengals. You had the Bengals win. It's the only one you got wrong for the whole of the playoffs. You would have been going to the Super Bowl if you're on the 8-8-8 game.
I don't know. I mean, the winner got 13 points because of all the bonus points that they had in that competition. So probably not.
You would have got some bonus points, I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Easy for me. I'm going to say the Chiefs because, like I said, I can't say Eagles to win. It's not in my nature. We'll be back again on Thursday for another fantasy show. Me and Adam will be talking about the tight ends. Guys, thank you for joining me tonight. Really appreciate it. And as I said, keep an eye out on socials. There will be a big Super Bowl show. We'll all be on it. Adam's looking to try and get every single person that we've had on throughout the year onto the show. So look out for that. That'll be really entertaining. But till then, thank you guys.